is the Jewish people's relationship to the land of Israel? Well, the way to understand that is to define Judaism. Now, the interesting thing is our enemies, those who hate Zionism and those who are against the Jewish right to the land of Israel, are very well aware the definition of who the Jews are and what Judaism is sits at the heart of whether we believe we have an absolute right to be there and those who believe we don't. I'm going to be reading, it's actually in my book, an article from the PLO Covenant. The PLO is the Palestine Liberation Organization, a terrorist organization that was founded in Egypt in 1964. And they wrote this as their first preamble, but the official one was written in 1968. Today, the PLO is known as the Palestinian Authority. Thanks to Israel, it's actually been turned into a political entity. This article still sits in the PLO covenant and has never been changed. Ready? The Balfour Declaration, the Mandate of Palestine, and everything that has been based upon them are deemed null and void. Claims of historical or religious ties of Jews with Palestine are incompatible with the facts of history and the true conception of what constitutes statehood. Judaism, being a religion, is not an independent nationality, nor do Jews constitute a single nation with an identity of its own. They are citizens of the states to which they belong. Why would Yasser Arafat and his merry band of terrorists in the late 1960s sit down and go out of their way to act as if they're the Encyclopedia Britannica and give us information about the Jewish people, the Jewish nation, and redefine things? Because they know very, very well. Number one, that if our ties are real and all you have to do is study history and study archaeology. We have been there for well over 3,000 years. There are dozens upon dozens of archaeological sites in Israel. They hate these archaeological sites. To this day, there are leaders in the Palestinian Authority and Hamas that talk about the phony temple in Jerusalem. There was no such thing. There was no Mitzada. There was no Chatzor. There was no Gamla. None of this happened. So they start, first of all, by erasing our factual connection to the land, historically, that is undeniable. And then they redefine Judaism. And they tell us, you are a religion. You pray, you eat your kosher food, you need your synagogues, and you are citizens of America, Poland, Lithuania, Argentina, Mexico, wherever it may be, but you do not constitute a nation. Why is the PLO interested in telling you this? Because they want to undermine this belief that there is such a thing as a Jewish nation, and therefore your right or our right to a state. So if you want to understand what the conflict is about, or to a certain extent was, because that's beginning to change, which I'll perhaps get to later in questions and answers. But at the heart of this conflict, whether you remember the PA, Hamas, a left-wing professor teaching Middle Eastern studies in a university in the United States of America, or a mufti giving a speech in a mosque in Gaza, or a member of the Muslim Brotherhood in Qatar or in Turkey, you all agree on this. There is no such thing as a Jewish nation. Because if we're a nation, then we have a right to a state. Nations have the right to their own state. That's what this conflict is all about. And that's one of the few things that people on the extreme left, jihadists, and people like that can agree on. So the question is, what does it mean to be a nation? Now I'm pausing, and I'll repeat this at the end. Almost everything that I'm saying is stuff you have, I don't care how excited, hopefully you are, how interested you are, you need to read about this. You need to read and understand, know the history, the documents, the maps. This is not just a one-shot deal. Can't teach you this in 40 minutes. This is hopefully to excite you. This is hopefully to engage you. This is hopefully to get you more interested in finding out about who we are, what we are, etc. So the way to find out what a nation is and how the Jewish people are a nation is by doing two things. One is let's see what Judaism says to us. Unlike Article 20, with all due respect to the scholars who wrote the Palestinian Liberation Organization covenant, I think I can define myself, thank you. And the way to define myself is to look at my sources. And my sources are the Bible, the Mishnah, and the Talmud, starting with the Chumash, 5 books of Moses, then the rest of the Bible, then the Mishnah, and then the Talmud. Those are my sources. And this is not relevant whether you're Jewish or not Jewish or an atheist. I'm allowed to say, be intellectually honest and understand these are my sources. I'm not asking you to believe that they're divine. I feel that they are divine. You can believe whatever you want, that they're historical documents. I studied Islam in college. I studied the Quran. I studied about Muhammad. I'm not a Muslim, but I do understand that if you want to understand what the Muslims believe, you have to study their books. I don't believe that the Quran was given to Muhammad by the angel Gabriel. I don't believe that. But I do believe it's about 14 centuries old. And I do believe that 1.4 to 1.5 billion Muslims believe every word that is written in there. And they define themselves based on every surah, every chapter in the Quran. And I would be a fool to think otherwise.